Arjun stood under a blinking street lamp. He felt the rough edge of the only coin he had left in the world. It wasn't a lucky coin. It was all his money, and his stomach was growling with hunger. He had a simple plan. He would buy 2 buns from the bakery on the corner. One would be for dinner, and the other would be a cold breakfast for tomorrow. When you have nothing, even plain bread feels like a treat. The bakery was open, with its warm light shining on the sidewalk. Suddenly, he saw a shadow leaning against a closed shop door. It was an old man wrapped in a thin blanket that didn't look warm at all. Arjun's first thought wasn't kind. He actually felt a flash of annoyance. He wanted to look at his shoes and pretend the man was just another part of the cold city. His hunger was a sharp pain telling him to keep walking, but then his mother's voice popped into his head. She used to say that losing your heart is much harder to fix than losing your money. He hated how right she was. He felt a wave of fear. He knew that if he gave up this coin, he would stay hungry. But as he watched the man shiver, he realized that while he was hungry, the stranger was struggling just to stay alive in the cold. He turned away from the bread and walked toward the tea stall. His fingers shook as he put the coin on the counter. The sound of the metal hitting the wood felt very loud in the quiet winter air. The seller handed him a hot glass of tea. As the heat pressed into his hands, Arjun felt a sudden regret. For a second, the tea smelled so good he almost took a drink himself, just to feel something warm inside. Instead, he forced himself to move. He walked through the cold wind until he stood over the old man. He didn't say much. He just reached down and placed the warm glass into the man's shaking hands. There were no big speeches or music playing in the background. The old man just looked up with tired eyes, his breath visible in the air, and whispered 2 simple words. "Thank you." Arjun nodded and walked away quickly, his hands deep in his empty pockets. He didn't look back because he was afraid that if he stayed, he would regret his choice and ask for the tea back. That night, hunger kept him awake in his small, cold room. He lay on his thin bed, wondering if he had been a hero or just a fool. But even with the pain in his stomach, he felt a strange sense of peace inside. Morning came with no miracles. There was no sudden job offer or a knock on his door. The room was just as cold as the night before, and his pocket was still empty. He stepped outside into the sharp morning air and walked past the same shop. The old man was gone, leaving nothing behind on the gray sidewalk. However, Arjun noticed something small, a single paper teacup placed carefully against the wall. He slowed down and looked at it. It sat there like a quiet sign in a busy world. He was curious, so he knelt down and touched the cold paper. When he lifted the cup, he found a folded $10 hiding underneath, tucked away from the wind. He froze, his heart beating fast as he stared at the money. He looked up and down the street, looking for the old man, but the world was just busy and indifferent. He didn't feel lucky. He felt seen. He realized it didn't matter if the money was an accident or a gift. What mattered was the way life sometimes answers back when you give. He folded the money carefully and put it in his pocket. For the first time in a long time, he wasn't afraid. The real strength in his pocket wasn't the cash. It was knowing that he didn't let fear of hunger make his choice for him. Kindness doesn't always come back as money, but it rarely ever just disappears. It travels in ways we can't always see. It proves that even when no one is watching, You are still deciding who you want to be. We often wait until we are ready to be kind, until we have enough money, time, or a steady life. But the truth is, your character is defined by the choices you make when you are down to your last coin. Don't let the fear of not having enough make your heart small. Sometimes, the world is waiting to see if you'll choose to be a good person, even when it's hard. When you give without expecting anything back, you aren't becoming poorer. You are becoming the kind of person that life looks after.